everyone, it's Jim of Shiloh Kahal, and today I continue the Prophets series with the fifth up in order of timing, or chronological order, and that will be Hosea. I am going to give a brief outline, but I'm going to condense it, and for a larger treaty of what I'm getting ready to share before we start in Hosea, I would refer you back to the videos that I made where I expound upon it. So let's get started here with the Kings and Prophets and just timing. So this is the Kings and Prophets timeline that I have shared a number of times, and this timeline is limited to the time of the, let me get my pencil here. The time of the United Kingdom under Saul, David, then Solomon. Then we have the split kingdoms here, and then we have we have the fall of Israel here, the northern kingdom. We have the fall of the southern kingdom here in 586, and then we have the time back in the land. That partial regathering under the time of the Persians and the Greeks, and under the leadership of Zerubbabel, Ezra, and Nehemiah. So this timeline is limited to that. And here we are talking about the prophet Hosea. Hosea is considered a prophet to the northern kingdom primarily, and he began here sometime, what would this amount to, 780, 770, something like that up here. And he ran through past, actually, here is the conquering of the northern kingdoms by Assyria, where they were led off into captivity, and it appears that Hosea continues in his ministry a little past that. So here he is in the timeline, while both kingdoms still exist, at about the time that the northern kingdom is to be dispersed or scattered. And let's go to the larger timeline. When this is in all of history, as I've shared, here is 0 Anno Mundi, or about 4000 BC, and over here is around 7000 Anno Mundi, meaning you're counting from day 1, 0, all the way up to 7000. And in BC, we've got, when we're counting by BC, we're counting down during the BC years down to 0, and then from AD forward, we are counting, let me get my pencil. From AD forward, we are counting up to 3,000 years. Okay, so on the large timeline of history, basically Hosea is somewhere right around here, which is about halfway through the timeline. We're getting ready to have Israel dispersed. The northern kingdom of Israel dispersed, and the southern kingdom will remain during his time. Ultimately, the full dispersion takes place 70 AD, 137 AD, something like that. And then we have this large time of dispersion where Israel is scattered among the nations and will be scattered among the nations until they are resurrected, gathered, and unified back into the land under the reign of Shemaim, with New Jerusalem under the new covenant. And this is also the timing of the second coming, when Yahushua comes back for the second time. Around 0 is the rough timing of the first coming. So this predates that by, what would it be, 750 years that Hosea is prophesying in advance of the Messiah coming. Okay, so that's the large overall picture. Now let's go visit the theme of the prophets. Now these are the identified consistent themes that I'm finding throughout all of the prophets as I read them. Not every theme is in every prophet, but it's a consistent theme among many prophets. And we'll identify as we go through Hosea and the other prophets the things of this of this list of themes that we can find in those prophets. So first of all, oftentimes there is a call to repentance and forgiveness, which is grace. Grace existed back then. If you will repent, He will forgive. And that's individually and nationally. So we're going to be looking for that. There's an identification of the remnant of Israel, which is a small group within national Israel who obey and follow Yahweh and became known later as the ecclesia, the church. And there's judgment. There is a judgment to the Gentile nations, and this day of Yahweh is a consistent theme. And in modern English translations, or in English translations, they'll refer to that as the day of the Lord. But it's really the day of Yahweh, his name. And it is judgment against the Gentiles. And they don't refer to it as a second coming, but we know as we have more information, because the teacher of righteousness has come, that this will occur at the second coming. And it's general judgment against Gentiles, with certain Gentile nations singled out for their crimes against Israel. And at which time the Gentiles who were egregious to Israel will be paid back, and their sins will be visited back upon them. In the restoration, we see that the Gentiles, and throughout these prophets, the Gentiles who enslaved Israel will ultimately serve Israel. Now, there's also a consistent theme of judgment to Israel. Israel's judgment and punishment for their sin and idolatries. While they had the opportunity to follow Torah, they, as a national entity, rejected it, forsook it, and turned away. Therefore, there was a sequence of things that happened. First, he removed his protection, turned it away. And then ultimately, as they continued in their sin, as he kept pulling back, and they should have learned their lesson, they didn't. So he had to keep stepping it up. And ultimately, it culminated in the destruction of Israel, the death of Israelites, and the removal of the national Israel and most Israelites from the promised land, which was the promised scattering throughout these various prophets. The survivors are removed and scattered and dispersed amongst the Gentiles throughout the entire world. And this was what culminated in when Messiah came, that basically he would become a light to the world, and part of that was through the dispersion. It will include natural Israel and spiritual Israel, which is that remnant of true followers and the spiritual seed of Israel that we've talked about, which it becomes the ecclesia, or the church. And during the time of scattering, they are constantly referred to as captives living in captivity. And this is important to understand because of all the references to the restoration from captivity, the bringing back from captivity in some of our more well-known and prominent passages. And then there is a restoration, a promised restoration. Having been scattered, living amongst the Gentiles as captives, there is a promised restoration, at which time they will be gathered back into the land for a second time. They're gathered from the four corners of the world, often referred to as delivering from captivity. And they're restored unto the land, and the restoration and prosperity of the land the second time is even better than the original time in the land. And at the time of this gathering back into the land, this is also when we receive our eternal life. This is the timing for the new covenant, when we are raised from the dead to live forever in our new spiritual bodies with ability to follow Torah, Yahweh and his Torah. So we understand this restoration to be today a rapture. The dead shall be raised up first, and then those who are living will be gathered from wherever they are throughout the world to be received unto him in the New Jerusalem. And then the New Jerusalem and all of us will come back to earth with the New Jerusalem to reign during the millennium period. Then we have all these references to Mount Zion and Jerusalem, and we need to differentiate between Mount Zion and Jerusalem during the first occupation and even today. Basically, Mount Zion and Jerusalem of today, as opposed to Mount Zion and Jerusalem of the second coming and the second occupation, because this Mount Zion and this Jerusalem does not exist here on earth. They exist up in the heavenlies. And this is what is coming down at the second coming, and this is the land to which we will all be gathered. It's often referred to, Mount Zion is referred to as the Kodesh Mountain and the Kodesh City. Sometimes in the first, during this period of time in the first occupation, actually it wouldn't be now, but during the first occupation, and then sometimes in referencing that Mount Zion and Jerusalem of the heavenly that will come about in the second occupation of the land. And then we see the introduction of the Messiah. As the prophets come on the scene and Israel is failing, we begin the discussions of a Messiah, a leader who will come and redeem and save and deliver God's, Yahweh's chosen people. Okay, so these are the themes we are looking for in the various prophets. Let's get started with Hosea. Okay, so this is Hosea in, the English for, I guess it'd be the English rendering of the Hebrew word, but we know it as Hosea. So I might say Hosea and Hosea interchangeably. I'm sorry, I haven't, it just happens as I go, but I would like to, we'll see if I can ever get consistent there. And then this would be the Hebrew, this would be the Masoretic rendering of the Hebrew, I believe. And then this would be the Paleo-Hebrew rendering of Hosea. Okay, so let's get started with Hosea chapter 1. The word of Yahweh that came to Hosea, son of Beri, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, and Ahaz, and Hezekiah, the sovereigns of Yehuda, and in the days of Jeroboam, son of Joash. Okay, so Hosea, in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, sovereigns of Yehuda. Let's go quickly look at that. Here they are. Here is Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah. These are who he referenced from the southern kingdom. So this was his time period here. And then, and in the days of Jeroboam, son of Joash, sovereign of Israel, which is up here. So this would be so Jeroboam, which was son of Jehoash. Then we have this period of time here. It looks like we have a Zechariah, Shalom, Menahem, Pekah, and Hosea here. Interesting. I don't think he references them. Just says Jeroboam, son of Joash, sovereign of Israel. Okay, the beginning of the word of Yahweh with Hosea, and Yahweh said to Hosea, Go, take yourself a woman of whoring and children of whoring, for the land has utterly whored away. I want to say here, even before I get started, in my days in Christianity, I've always thought of Hosea as primarily being this story between Hosea and Gomer. And it is, the wife they had to take as a whore. And it is a little bit related to that, but it is really one of the best prophecies dealing with Israel in the future out there. So really, while Gomer and this idea, and we're going to get illustrations of what has taken place between Yahweh and Israel, and Yahweh and I believe Judah here, or Yehuda, it'll be used as an illustration, but that's all it is. And it's a rather short part of this entire prophecy. So let's get started. Let me start back up at 2. The beginning of the word of Yahweh with Hosea, and Yahweh said to Hosea, Go, take yourself a woman of whoring and children of whoring, for the land has utterly whored away from Yahweh. So he went and he took Gomer, daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. And Yahweh said to him, Call his name Israel, for in a little while, For in a little while I shall revenge the bloodshed of Israel on the house of Yahu, and put an end to the reign of the house of Israel. Okay, so here's the promise that the house of Israel, the house of the northern kingdom, is getting ready. The line of kings that have been serving and reigning over the northern kingdom, it's coming to an end in the house of Israel. So that's the first son. And it shall be in that day that I shall break the bow of Israel in the valley of Israel. So here's the promised execution of judgment on Israel. And she conceived again and bore a daughter. And he said to him, Call her name Lo Ruhamah, for no longer do I have compassion on the house of Israel, so as to forgive them at all. So the days of being able to turn back and repent and, their opportunity has come to an end. Verse 7, But I shall have compassion on the house of Yehuda and save them by Yahuwah their Elohim, and not save them by bow or sword or battle, by horses or horsemen. And she weaned Lo Ruhamah and conceived and bore a son. So while he's judging Israel at this point in time, he is not yet judging Yehuda. He's going to have compassion on Yehuda for a while and save them by Yahweh their Elohim, and not save them by bow or sword or battle. The king that is going to come against Israel will come against Yehuda as well. So Assyria, Ashur, as it will be in these scriptures, will come against Israel and conquer them and take them and carry them off, capture them and carry them off. They will come against Yehuda, but they will not succeed against the southern kingdom of Yehuda. But it isn't because Yehuda rose up in battle and could challenge him. No, Elohim, Yahweh, Yehuda's Elohim saved them supernaturally, and there's a whole story related to that in the various scriptures that we'll end up reading. But okay, so verse 8 again, and she weaned Lo Ruhamah and conceived and bore a son, and then he said, call his name Lo Ami, for you are not my people, and I am not for you. Okay, so he's basically rejecting Israel because they have rejected him. That's the sum total of it. They've rejected him, so he's rejecting them. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which is not measured nor counted. And it shall be in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people. They shall be called, you are the sons of the living El. Now, I will say that even though they are going to be judged and killed, and many of them killed, their numbers will shrink from their time in the northern lands of Israel. When they're attacked by Ashur or Assyria, they will shrink in numbers, but when they go off into captivity, they will once again prosper in number anyway. They shall become numerically as the sand of the sea. The natural seed of Israel will become so numerous. Now we know today that most of those who would be considered children of Israel and considered the numbered amongst the sand of the sea don't even realize that they're Israel. Goes on to say it's not measured or counted. But then in the place where it is said to them, you are not my people, which is in the land of Israel, they shall be called, you are the sons of the living El. So this is the promised regathering. This is up here where it says, you are not my people. This is the judgment. This is what's taking place in the time of Hosea. But there is a coming regathering that we've been talking about, that it's not expressly saying here, but we know from other references and understanding this to be in the very land where they are called, where it's being said of them, you are not my people, they will once again be called, you are the sons of the living El. And this is at the time of the restoration. Okay, verse 11, and the children of Yehuda and the children of Israel shall be gathered together and appoint for themselves one head, and shall come up out of the earth, for great is the day of Israel. Okay, so just like I was saying, the children, not just the children of Israel, but the children of the southern kingdom, Yehuda. Well, here it is. Okay, so both the children of Yehuda and the children of Israel shall be gathered together. So this is the promised regathering that we're talking about, that restoration together. All of them, all 12 tribes will be gathered together, and they will appoint for themselves one head, and that is Messiah. In Ezekiel, we will hear him referred to as David and the shepherd of David. So we will hear him called other things, but we know that Messiah is the one head who will be sovereign over all of Israel at the time when he comes back the second time, and we have the millennial period, and we're all regathered back together. And all of this shall come up out of the earth. Literally, the dead will come up out of the earth, but even those that are living could be, considered having come out of the earth. For great is the day of Israel. So this would be, we might see references to this time period as the day of Israel elsewhere as well. But this would also be for great is the day of Yahweh. Great is the day of restoration. We could say over and over again what this is, but this is the time of that restoration. It is the day of Yahweh. It is the second coming. Okay, so let's move on to chapter 2. Say to your brothers, O my people, and to your sisters, O compassionate ones, strive with your mother, strive, for she is not my wife, nor am I her husband. Let her put away her whorings from her face, and her adulteries from between her breasts, lest I strip her naked, and shall establish her as on the day she was born, and shall make her like a wilderness, and shall appoint her like a dry land, and shall put her to death with thirst. And I shall not have compassion on her children, for they are the children of whorings. For their mother has whored, she who conceived them has acted shamelessly. For she said, I go after my lovers, who give me my bread, and my water, and my wool, and my linen, my oil, and my drink. Therefore, see, I am hedging up your way with thorns, and I shall wall her in, so that she does not find her paths. And she shall pursue her lovers, but not overtake them, and she shall seek them, but not find them. Then she shall say, let me go and return to my first husband, for then it was better for me than now. And she did not acknowledge that I gave her grain and new wine and oil, and increased her silver and gold, which they prepared for Baal. Okay. Therefore I shall turn back, and shall take my grain in its time, and my new wine in its season, and I shall take away my wool and my linen, covering her nakedness. And now I shall uncover her shame before the eyes of her lovers, and no one shall deliver her from my hand. And I shall cause all her rejoicing, her festivals, her new moons, which are her new months celebrations, and her Shabbatot, her Sabbaths, even all of her appointed times to cease, and lay waste her vines and her fig trees, of which she has said, these are my rewards that my lovers have given me, and I shall make them a forest, and the beasts of the field shall eat them. And I shall punish her for the days of the Baals, to which she burned incense and adorned herself with her rings and jewelry, and went after her lovers, and forgot me, declares Yahuwah. Therefore, see, I am alluring her, and shall lead her into the wilderness, and shall speak to her heart, and give to her vineyards from there, and the valley of Achor as the door of expectation. And there she shall respond, as in the days of her youth, as in the day when she came up from the land of Mitzrayim. And it shall be in that day, declares Yahuwah, that you call me my husband, and no longer call me my Baal. And I shall remove the names of Baals from her mouth, and they shall no more be remembered by their name. And in that day I shall make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field, and with the birds of the Shemaim, and with the creeping creatures of... and the creeping creatures of the ground, when bow and sword and battle I break from the earth, and I shall make them lie down in safety. And I shall take you as a bride unto me forever, and I take you as a bride unto me in righteousness and in right ruling, and kindness and compassion. And I shall take you as a bride unto me in trustworthiness, and you shall know Yahuwah. And it shall be in that day that I answer, declares Yahuwah, that I answer the Shemaim, and they answer the earth. And the earth answer the grain, and the new wine, and the oil, and they answer Yisrael. And I shall sow her for myself in the earth, and I shall have compassion on her who had not obtained compassion. And I shall say to those who were not my people, you are my people, while they say, my Elohim. Okay, what a huge chapter, and I have to go back and rebuild it and just go over it with you. So, say to my brothers, O my people, and to your sisters, O compassion, strive with your mother, strive, for she is not my wife. Okay, so in many teachings, it's all over the place. In church teachings, in Torah teachings, in people, they get caught up in this idea of husbandry, where Yahweh would have been the husband and Israel, the 12 tribes, would have been his wife. Now, in this situation, I think we are talking about the northern kingdom of Israel, but we could be talking about both Israel to the north and Yehudah to the south, altogether being Israel, and how they once had, as a mother, they were husband and wife together. She was the wife of Yahweh. Now, this is an illustration because it gets a little confusing because we're going to see we see references to bride here, and we think, okay, so that makes the church or Israel the bride to Yahweh, and that's true. But we're going to see references later where the New Jerusalem is also going to be called the bride. So we have to be careful with the illustrations being used to illustrate the situation that Israel is in and going to be in and how it's going to land. But clearly what we've got is say to your brothers, O my people, in open compassion, strive with your mother, strive, for she is not my wife, nor am I her husband. So clearly we've got a break in relationship, a break in the covenant. And why is there a break in the covenant? Not because the husband was unfaithful, but because the wife was unfaithful in this illustration. Israel was unfaithful. And they're being called, he's basically saying, oh, my people, talk to your mother, call her out. Let her put away her whorings from her face and her adulteries from between her breasts. Let her stop doing what she's been doing, lest she get judged. He's going to strip her naked and establish her as the day she was born. Basically, take everything back and take everything that he's given her away. And shall make her like a wilderness and appoint her like a dry land, and shall put her to death with thirst. And ultimately, that's what's happened. All the things that he gave Israel they were taken away because of her actions, because of Israel's actions. And I shall not have compassion on her children, for they are the children of whoring. So that's, this is the promise that to Israel, let me get my pencil here. This is the promise that, even to the children, even to those who did not necessarily commit some of the worst actions that the mother did, but still he's not going to have compassion on them. They are going to be judged right alongside the mother because they are the children of this union and these whorings. For their mother has whored. She has conceived them and acted shamelessly. And then she went after my lovers. And who are her lovers? Her lovers are all of the other Elohim, all the other mighty ones of the land. How could this be... How could we bring this to today? Well, in the United States, while we are claiming to follow Yahuwah, the Elohim of our Messiah, Yahushua, the Son, while we claim to be following that, we are not doing so according to his ways. We are doing so according to ways that have been taught us from the church and from others and from the influences of our society. Society and our culture is infringing upon those who would like to believe themselves to be followers of Christ, Christians, but they're giving way to all of the things that the church has taught and that our society and our culture has taught us. And this is what is encroaching, and this is the act of the whoring. This is the lovers that she was guilty of. So that makes us guilty today, as we are not turning to the ways of Yahweh, but turning to the ways of something else. Because if you do not hold to the understandings and the teachings of who Messiah is according to the scriptures as the Messiah to Israel, and enforcing and embracing the ways and the Torah of Israel, all the things that Israel was appointed to before never changed, and we are to actually call to that inside of our cultures and our societies, but we're not doing that today. So we are basically also guilty of this whole thing of going after our lovers, because we're not going after the father, the husband, who calls us to certain behaviors and actions and things. We are called to be his wife, acting as he would, as our head, as the head of our family, as he would lead the family. And we're not. We are rebelling against his leadership, and that's what's taken place. So he's hedging up her way and thorns, walling her in so that she can't find. So she's going to get lost. She's not going to find her path, and she's going to continue to pursue her lovers, but never overtake them. So she keeps seeking them as though they will have the answers and that they will help them, help her, find what she's seeking in this world. But the answer is not with them. The answer is with the husband. So that's why she says, then she shall say, let me go back and return to my first husband, for it was better for me than now. Okay, so here's a call where she's recognizing she should go back to Yahuwah, go back to her husband, recognizing that it's better. But she did not acknowledge that it was the first husband that gave the grain and the new wine and the oil, increased her silver and the gold, all the things that he gave her, but she gave him for Baal, which they, the children, she, being Israel, prepared for Baal, other mighty ones, other Elohim. That's who they gave. What Yahweh gave them, they gave to Baal. Therefore, This is the response of Yahweh. This is the response of the husband. Therefore I shall turn back and shall take my grain in its time and my new wine in its season. And I shall take away my wool and my linen, covering her nakedness. And I shall uncover her shame before the eyes of her lovers, and no one shall deliver. So this is the taking back of all those things he gave her that they gave to other Elohim back then, but what we would be giving to other Elohim today, whether we understand that we're doing it or not. And cause her rejoicing, her festivals, her new months, all the things that she would do as if she was following the guidance of the husband and his ways. These would be all the things that they would be. These would be the fond memories that she would have had while living as a family with her husband. But it's taken away, causes him to cease, and laying waste her vines and her fig trees, of which she has said, these are my rewards that my lovers have given me. So even though the husband, gave the vines and the fig trees to the wife, she says it's the rewards that her lovers gave her. That those outside Elohim, which we would be doing today as well, these she gives credit for having given her rewards and all the wonderful things that she had. But he's basically saying, I'm going to take him, I'm going to turn him into a forest, and the beasts of the field shall eat them. So this is just removing all of it and turning it back into a wasteland, and a dangerous place to be, where the beasts are now roaming again and having free will. And he says, I will punish her for the days of the Baals to which she burned incense and adorned herself with her rings and jewelry and went after her lovers and forgot me. So this is what she did. And ultimately, the husband's going to punish her with having taken away all of the things. So there's a punishment coming to Israel. And I would say that this is what, if we are burning incense and adorning ourselves with rings and going after other things other than what the husband has called the wife to do and be, then we are also going to be punished for those days. Okay, so therefore, see, I am alluring her, and shall lead her into the wilderness, and speak to her heart, and give to her vineyards from there, and the valley of Achor as a door of expectation, and there she shall respond. Okay, so this is the beginning. This is a turning. This is a later period of time that we will see in Deuteronomy. We will see in the various times that this restoration is promised, and there is a calling. There is a wooing of the heart where Israel, will respond to his wooing again. From wherever they're at, they're going to be allured back and into this right relationship. This is the beginning of the promise of restoration. See, I'm alluring her, and shall lead her to the wilderness, and speak to her heart, and she will respond, and give her again vineyards from there. And the valley of Achor, I don't know what the valley of Achor is, as a door of expectation, but clearly he's speaking of an expectation, a hope of Israel, a hope of the wife, a hope of these people. And there she shall respond. As I said, this promise, he's speaking and she's responding. This is in time. This is in time. We know it's in time from Deuteronomy and other passages, Jeremiah. We know it's in time where she is responding, where Israel is responding to his voice, as they did in the days of her youth, which was back when they came out of the land of Egypt, or the land of Mitzrayim. And it shall be in that day, the promised future day, the promised day of restoration, the promised, when everybody's responding, we're regathered back together. It shall be in that day that you shall once again be called, that you call me my husband. So he's going to take his place again as husband of Israel. Even though she is whored and gone off, there will be, and really been separated from the husband, there's a coming time where the wife, the whoring wife, will turn back to Yahweh and call him my husband. And that's the promise. You shall call me my husband, and no longer call me by my Baal, which is what she's calling this idea of these other husbands, Baals and Elohim, that where she was walking in error. She will no longer be walking in error and confusing Yahweh for these various other Elohim. Okay, and I shall remove the names of the Baals from her mouth. I think that's happening now. We're seeing a restored, I think we're in these end times where this alluring is taking place, because we're seeing so many of the increase of the knowledge according to Daniel, and so many of the things within these prophecies we're beginning to see happening. Because just like when you get into the restored name scriptures, especially like the scriptures that C.J. Kester put together that has culminated in the ISR version called the Scriptures, or translation called the Scriptures, and also in the Hallelujah Scriptures and the Yah Scriptures, these things emanating from his work and maybe other works. The RSTNE, I believe, is doing that to a lesser degree. But here we've got a movement where we're trying to remove all of the names that the Greek language is full of all of these various names of their gods and their Elohim. So when we speak things and we turn them into English, we're literally speaking the name of Baals over and over again. And there's a whole movement where we're removing those names. We're trying to. That's why in this version that you're hearing me read, you will see words that are not what you're accustomed to hearing. You're going to hear Kodesh instead of holy. You're going to hear esteem instead of glory, because the holy and glory, in other words, have problems. So there's a whole movement. I've shared that in many other videos. I'm going to quit talking about it here. But there's this movement to remove the names of the Baals from our mouth. And they shall no more be remembered by their name. We don't even want to be speaking their names to remember them. And in that day, and this is the promise, this is in that day I shall make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field and with the birds of the Shemaim, with the creeping creatures of the ground. When bow and sword and battle I break from the earth, and I shall make them lie down in safety. If you are hearing what I'm saying throughout these various prophets, you are hearing what this is. This is the covenant. This is the new covenant of Jeremiah. This is the covenant of peace of Isaiah. This is the covenant of peace of Ezekiel. This is the new covenant that the church in chapter 8 of Hebrews, we think we're talking about the fact that we're in this new covenant now that comes about for the first coming of Yahushua. But literally the covenant that is spoken about in Jeremiah and Hebrews 8 is this covenant here, which is the covenant of peace that is made in that day, the day of restoration, which will be the day that we would know as the rapture, the regathering of people together. We'll be gathered up and brought back up in. We're going to be given our new bodies, taken up to the land of promise, and from there, that's when we are going to begin walking in this covenant. And in this covenant, and when it all comes back down and we come into the reign and it all comes down, there will be harmony throughout all of Israel, all of the New Jerusalem, that huge 1,300 mile square place or 1,500, depends on what version you're reading or translation you're reading. But this huge place, it's going to be full of birds and beasts and creeping creatures and different things, but all of it will be in harmony and peace. There will be no bow and sword. There'll be no battle. And everybody's going to lie down in safety, and this is why this is the covenant of peace. So this is the end time covenant Hosea is talking about. And what is that during that time? This is what's taking place during that restoration, during that second coming, during that and when Yahushua comes back, Yahweh will be taking Israel back again as a bride unto him forever. So Elohim will be taking unto them Israel once again, all 12 tribes, unto him forever. And there will be no more breaks. Flesh will not enter in and cause sinning again. When we are taken back as a bride forever, this time we're going to be taken back in the resurrection body where we will not fail. And take you as a bride unto me in righteousness, which is according to Torah. Torah will be written on our hearts, and in right ruling, again, the Torah will be written on our heart, and together we will be experiencing that right relationship, and he will be operating in kindness and compassion. We will be receiving that kindness and compassion, that hesed, that covenant fulfillment, that covenant loyalty we're going to be experiencing at that time. We've never experienced it in this church age. Maybe a little bit here and there do we receive his kindness and compassion, but not like we're going to receive. We have not received the promise of the covenant yet. We just haven't. Verse 20, and I shall take you unto And I shall take you as a bride unto me in trustworthiness, and you shall know Yahweh. Know intimately Yahweh, the Father, our Elohim, our mighty one. We shall know all of this in wholeness. We will literally enter into his presence. We shall know him in a way that we have never experienced here during this age. And it shall be in that day that I answer, declares Yahweh. That he's responding because everybody's in harmony. We're back. We're back to harmony, and he's not turning away because of sin. We're not operating in sin anymore. Neither our old sin is going to be held against us, and there is no new sin. And it shall be in that day that he's answering, and that he answers the heavens, the Shemayim, and they answer the earth, which would mean that the earth will give up its rain in its due seasons in the earth. There just will be harmony everywhere. And the earth shall answer the grain and the new wine and the oil. So the Shemayim will give up its rain. Its earth will respond and give grain in its season. It's the new wine in its season, the new oil. And they all answer to Israel or Yisrael, which is just, Yisrael is just another word for Israel. It could be Yisrael. It's that's commonly, I don't know why it's interchanging these words, but it does. And I shall sow her for myself in the earth, and I shall have compassion on her who had not obtained compassion. So this is the promise. This is his working, fixing her, fixing the people, solving the sin problem for the people, and making it all right once again. And it will all occur on the earth, where he will show compassion on us, Israel, who had not obtained compassion because of their sin. And this is going back up to this the end of verse here where it says, in the children of, is that it? No, here it is in the beginning of chapter 2 where it says, hang on a second. I'm so sorry. It is chapter 1, right at the end of chapter 1 in verses 10, where in the place where he says, you are not my people, he's going to say, you are the sons of the living El. And here he is at the end of chapter 2, just affirming that. that I shall have compassion on her for myself in the earth, and I shall have compassion on her who had not contained compassion. And I shall say to those who are not my people, you are my people. So in the place where he said, you are not my people, he will once again say, you are my people. And they will respond with, you are my Elohim. And this is the theme throughout these prophets. In that day, we will be his people, and he will be our Elohim. It's the promise over and over again, and here it is in Hosea. Let me end part 1 here.